You're very welcome along to the Keith Andrews Show with you today, Wednesday, in the build-up to the game for tomorrow night. Glad to say Mr. Nathan Murphy is in the house. First day back in the office. Welcome back.
How are you?
We've been holding the fort for you.
You've been doing an okay job?
So.
Well, it's good to return in Irish football in such fine fettle. Quiet build-up. Nothing's really happened.
Funny you should say that. It's been a disaster of a build-up. There's only the Danish team that can really say that things have been going worse for them on a preparation front.
Well, it does put everything into context. Can you imagine what it would be like if we were putting out our futsal team in a friendly and against Wales on Sunday? Do you see those Danish players desperately running around trying to stop the ball going out of play because they don't know what to do if it does?
You obviously know more about futsal than me. I'm not really that privy to it. Do you like futsal?
Not particularly, no.
Oh.
I don't like to see them playing international football where the actual Danish team should be playing.
Well, we haven't got third, fourth, fifth tier players obviously playing, but we are bare bones. So there's no doubt about it. Build-up wise, injuries, obviously the Declan Rice issue, which we'll discuss a little bit, and we've got Shay Gabbidon on later. It would be nice to get his take on that. Danny Gabbidon's obviously going to join us as well later in the show to give us on the Welsh angle of the match tomorrow. But injuries playing a part. Declan Rice, Harry Arthur, the issue with Roy Keane with Harry Arthur and John Walters. It's just been one thing after another. And then only yesterday, James McLean pulling out with a broken hand or some kind of wrist issue where he's out of the game.
Let's be honest, it's been an absolute shit show.
Yeah, it's been terrible. Like, it really has been terrible. And like the thing I would kind of counter this with was when you're in, you know, like you've obviously been involved in media a lot longer than I have. So when you get criticised for negative performances and tactics maybe that are employed by the manager, you very much kind of batten down the hatches. Like with this one though, it must be tough being in that camp because it's just seems to have been one thing after another where it's just gone wrong, another negative.
Well, what we always hear on the outside, and it would have been the same when you were playing as well, is that the players do that. They batten down the hatches. They're not reading newspapers. They're not looking for comments of themselves online, that they're basically totally ignorant of the outside world. Is that actually true?
I never did. I have to be completely honest. You know my thoughts on social media. Anyway, I'm not a big fan of it.
But when something like this is going on and there's
hard to avoid,
there's so much comment to say about the Declan Rice situation, about what's happened with Harry Arthur and Roy Keane, do you just go into a shell and try and ignore everything, or are the players constantly talking about it, wondering what's going to happen next?
I think players will be talking about it, obviously, and there will be an opinion that will go on behind closed doors amongst each other where, you know, I think a lot of them will be disgruntled by maybe Rice, maybe Arthur, maybe both, the fact that they haven't come in for their different reasons, what we hear. But then publicly, we've heard from Darren Randolph in the last few days, Kieran Clark. I spoke with Seamus Coleman in the build-up to the game for an interview for Sky that's going to go out before the game, and again, very, very protective of him. So again, what they say publicly, what they say private, obviously two very, very different things. But in terms of the general kind of build-up negativity, they can't avoid it. It's just fairly obvious. We're down to the bare bones.
On the Declan Rice side of things, the only current player we've seen come out was the initial reaction from James McLean, which didn't address Rice personally, but was very much, I feel 100% Irish. We only want players who feel 100% Irish playing for their country. What we heard from Darren Randolph and from Seamus Coleman and players this week is, listen, give him time, he'll be accepted back in.
Yeah.
In situations like that where there is such a storm, and this is one of the biggest storms we've had around Irish football over the last 3 or 4 years, does the manager sit down with the players before they go out to speak to the media and say,
"Oh yeah, I would imagine
this is the message we're getting across"?
Look, as a player in a club and for your country environment, there's always when you are doing the media, especially in the latter years when I played, there was always the press officer, and they would obviously know. Look, it's not rocket science. If we're interviewing Seamus this week, if we're interviewing Darren Randolph, Declan Rice is obviously going to come up. Harry Arthur is obviously going to come up. It's the nature of the beast. So they would give an advisory line and just to be careful on this, be careful on that, because it's clearly a very, very delicate issue. And let's not pull any punches. What Darren Randolph, what Seamus Coleman say carries a hell of a lot of weight, especially Seamus being the captain of the country. So yes, they have to be careful what they say, but I think the united front that we're hearing publicly is, you're right, let's just give him that little bit of time. Let's respect his wishes for the time being. I think it was in the paper this morning, wasn't it, that there's a little murmurs maybe coming. I think it was in the Star.
Yeah, Paul Lennon had the story that there may well be a statement as soon as possibly next Wednesday morning from Declan Rice that he is going to commit again for Ireland, that he is going to be available for the home games against Wales and Denmark next month. What happens then? I'm of the view I would welcome him back. I firmly believe the reaction, some of it was over the top. I understand why people feel so passionately about it, but our recruitment policy is bring young players in, second generation, ask them to come, ask them to taste it, and if they want to go elsewhere, that's fine. Obviously, he went a step further.
Well, our pal was one of the biggest forceful opinions, wasn't he, in Kev?
Listen, I understand totally where Kevin comes from and where he grew up and what the culture he grew up was. I just wonder when he goes back in. So Martin O'Neill clearly had a word with James McLean and said, you need to go and you need to talk to Declan Rice. We don't want to create a situation where he feels he's almost been railroaded over to England when maybe he was very much 70-30. Maybe just something happened behind the scenes. He wanted a bit of time and suddenly we're all pushing him away. But if he does come back in, again, in that group, in the team hotel, do you all have to come together and agree that we're going to put this to one side? Do you trash it out, or do you just get a bit of a slagging from some people?
I'd be amazed if there wasn't, obviously, private conversations going on, but I would be amazed if the management team haven't addressed this whole issue this week. Take the Arthur issue out of the equation. With Declan Rice as a separate issue, I would be amazed if it wasn't brought up, and it may well have been at the top of a meeting where they're talking about Wales, or a preview from clips watching this, that and the other. Look, lads, before we get on to this, we need to address Declan. This is what's happened. He may well tell them a lot more than we're privy to, and he will probably ask them, look, let's keep this between the four walls that we're in now. Now, we don't know what's going to happen. If, for instance, he does decide to come back, what I would suggest would be, I don't think there'll be splits in the camp, but there'll be very different opinions. So if myself, you and Kevin Kilbama in here, there's three fairly different opinions. Kev very strong. You might differ slightly to me. I think ultimately, players being players, they'll just get on with it. I really do. And I think how good of a player he is, and when you hear and you see what he has said, I don't think it was acted out the way he was very passionate about playing for Ireland. The performance is what he said. I think it was very, very genuine. We don't know what's happened. Ultimately, we're guessing and we're putting two and two together and maybe not coming up with four. Do I think he'll come back? I have to be honest now, I don't know. Last week I said I don't think he will. But I really don't know. What's your gut feeling?
I think he will. I think the story in the Star, Paul Lennon has very good sources, is the first suggestion, and maybe they're just dipping their toe in the water and see what the general reaction will be. When it's probably the perfect time for him to come back. Don't let this drag on. And also, people are looking at this Ireland squad and are desperate for an injection of quality. He has the potential to be our best player for the next 5, 10, 15 years. So because of that, I think he will be welcome back. And I think he should be. If he's 19 and he wanted a bit of a break, that's perfectly fine. The other question is, then when he does come back, does he fully explain as to what happened, what did change? Martin O'Neill was obviously very forceful this week in saying whatever about what happened with Ari Arter, this story that Declan Rice was playing peacemaker and maybe something was said, something happened, and that's why Declan Rice decided to step away, that was totally untrue. But you do just wonder, why? What changed? As Brian Kerr said last week, did something happen, known or unknown, that Declan Rice decided, actually, I'm just going to take a break and decide whether this is for me?
Well, this is the piece Paul Lennon's in the Star, which we've been alluding to, and he's very adamant that this is probably going to happen. Look, you mentioned that there was a lot of bits and bobs down through the years. This is the biggest thing we've had in a number of years. I'm just here, back page. Back on deck, Rice considering returning to Green. Declan Rice is seriously considering a swift return to Ireland duty ahead of next month's Crunch Nations League double-header. What I should counter this with as well was, as you know, I work for Sky. I'll be there tomorrow night. You'll be doing comms as well. There was a bit of an amazement with the hoo-ha going on around this from an English perspective.
Why? And that he's 19, why do we care so much?
Like, why use that bothered about him? You know, the average fan over there, people I work with, really, are you that bothered about the whole Declan Rice thing? And I was first of all, I was like, yeah, do you not get this? And then when I actually had to paint it out, the picture where, look, this lad is 19. He has played so well in the Premier League so far. He's getting highlights on Match of the Day. He's getting picked out as a player in a team that were struggling last year, slotted between centre-half, left-sided centre-half, centre midfield. Did it in the same game for us. Shows all sorts of just composure to his game in general, in possession, the way his technical awareness of what positioning and all those type of traits at 19 in the toughest league in the world. I was like, okay, Harry Maguire was playing in League One for Sheffield United at 19. He's streets ahead of him. Look at Harry Maguire now. And we know careers can take different paths, of course, but there was that little bit of, oh really, you that bothered about him?
Well, I think also, and that maybe in England they're somewhat surprised and taken aback at times by the obsession towards the national team here in Ireland. I know they go crazy around international breaks in England, but the rest of the time it's Premier League, Premier League, Premier League.
I agree.
Whereas here, it's all we have, because people don't spend as much time talking about the League of Ireland. It's constantly the international side on the back page. And I noticed that right at the start of the year, I was at the game where he played brilliantly against Spurs at Wembley and had Harry Kane in his pocket, and he came out afterwards to the mix zone. Declan Rice was doing some interviews with a gang of British journalists who were all asking him about, oh, what about Gareth Southgate? What about England? Are you thinking about that? And he was like, oh no, I play for Ireland.
Yeah,
and
play for
literally 5 of them were like, all right, you're Irish. Yeah, I play with the Irish under-21s, yeah, so that's where my future is. None of them even knew that. Like, that was the sort of level and how they were thinking of Declan Rice. And they seem more accepting of it in England because they have a bigger pool. So Wilfried Zaha turns his back. Like, Wilfried Zaha will be in that England squad every day of the week. It's not that big a deal because they have Harry Kane, Raheem Sterling. We unfortunately don't.
Yeah. So for Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane, tricky time. We've obviously gone through some fairly dark days, a little bit of negativity. Rice was the one positivity you would suggest since the Denmark game. So if we focus on Roy's role at the moment, and when he came in, it was obviously blockbuster news. Martin O'Neill, Roy Keane. Actually, we've got a little video that paints the picture, or may well have painted the picture as to what we may well have anticipated from Martin and Roy. Let's have a little look.
Congratulations, Martin. The question on everyone's lips: why choose Roy to work with?
I've asked myself that many a time in the last 48 hours, but he's coming with me. Personally speaking, I think he'll be great for me, but more importantly, he'll be great for the Republic of Ireland.
Roy?
No, fantastic news. Delighted, obviously honoured that Martin's asked me to go and help him with the team. Very excited. I mightn't look it, but I am. I'm looking forward to working with the players and trying to get to the Euros.
It's a yin and yang. I don't know who's yin and who's yang, but it's a marriage made in heaven, possibly.
Well, I think I'm the bad cop, and I think he's the bad cop. But I think we're excited by it.
Painted a picture early on. Look, Roy Keane, as we all know, iconic figure in Irish sport. So my take on this at the moment, we obviously know Martin's come out and he's been a little bit more open to the media in recent weeks, as we know, giving one-to-ones. Roy Keane, as the player, we know the history of Saipan, we know the history of red cards, the coming together as a player. Very, very highly strung, very aggressive player. No problem. Because he was a driving force in the dressing room and on the pitch. He set standards. What I should say as well is that was in a different era. The game has drastically changed. Society has changed in the last 10 to 15 years. Now, in my opinion, Roy is in a very responsible role. His job title is assistant manager. And I just think currently he is not assisting the manager. Now, we go on about these things happen, these coming togethers. John Walter's more than able to look after himself. I've no doubt about that. So if there was a coming together between him and Roy, no problem. Harry Arthur has clearly decided it's not for him. Martin's crying out for, we haven't got Premier League players playing well, we haven't got them playing at a higher level. Harry Arthur is playing in the Premier League at the moment and is playing very well in a system, in a style, in a team that would actually suit him coming into an Irish environment.
Don't have much of the ball. Gets around, abrasive,
aggressive,
annoys people.
Yeah, gets on the front foot. So I'm not quite sure what's happening here, but it cannot be right. It just cannot be right what is going on, that Roy Keane has had a direct influence on Harry Arter not wanting to come and play for us in an important game?
I would agree. I don't think it's acceptable that a player would decide not to play for his country because of something that happens with an assistant manager. But Martin O'Neill spoke yesterday and he doesn't seem to have a problem with it. He seems to think, I brought Roy on board, I knew what I was getting. I knew I had somebody who was confrontational, and maybe he likes that sort of an edge around the squad. It just does feel as though it is stuck back in a previous era. And Martin O'Neill spoke about the rows that he had with Brian Clough, and ultimately they win 2 European Cups together. That sometimes you just have to suck it up. I think modern day players look at it and think, I don't. And also you worry about young players who are coming into the squad, who are looking at this, who've come up through a culture, and you'll know well about this, of academies and the way they're treated, and probably kid gloves a lot of the way, that this is almost a step back in time, that whether it's a smart comment that a player reacts to, and it's very interesting with Martin O'Neill, just the amount of interviews he has done, that he has spoken so openly about these rows in advance, because he obviously knew it was coming. He knew that Harry Arter wasn't going to be in the squad. He knew that maybe John Walters might talk about this at some stage. And you're right, John Walters clearly is, and these rumours have been out there for months that Walters is well able to square up to Roy Keane, as he has done previously when they were together at Ipswich. But that's not every player. Some players take it to heart. Some players go back to the room and go, I don't need this. Whereas actually, I get the sense John Walters is coming back into this squad, and because one of the reasons is probably he's thinking, there's no way Roy Keane is going to end my international career. Just one little thing, I'm not going to step back.
The roles of a staff, okay, at a football club, at an international team, it doesn't matter what sport it is even, is ultimately to get the best out of the players that go out to get a result at senior level, different at development stages, academies, etc. But for us, okay, I've mentioned about, is he assisting Martin? Probably not. Martin might feel he is in certain ways. You've got different strings to your bow. Whatever you do within that camp, Guppy may well look at analysis. Steve Walford might do set pieces. Again, I'm guessing here. But they all should have different attributes that complement Martin and ultimately get the best out of those players that are playing in the building. Are they at the moment? Not quite sure. Are they creating an environment where the players really want to come to and they feel that they can prosper in, they feel they can play their best football? Probably not. So I just look at it all this week, and we're talking about the build-up right from the start of this show. The build-up hasn't been ideal. Some of them you can do nothing about. The injuries to Shane Long, James McCarthy still out injured, Shawnee Maguire, unfortunately, in key areas we are lacking. Fortunately, defensively we are. But there is things you can affect. There really is things you can affect. So that siege type mentality, we're all in it together. Look at what Michael O'Neill has done up the north. You hear players constantly saying how well he's done, what he's done for their careers. I just don't get that sense with us at the moment.
Well, that's an issue, it seems, both on the pitch and off the pitch, and we'll probably get into it. We've spoken about it time and time again about the lack of preparation, the team being named an hour beforehand, which Martin O'Neill defended himself when he was on this show last week, saying, if I thought naming the team 3 days in advance would get us a better result, I would do it. He feels this is the right way, but the lack of practice at set pieces, how different that is at club level to what it is at international level. But now it's becoming clear there's also a problem off the pitch regarding the atmosphere. It just doesn't seem acceptable that players are almost having to walk on eggshells because we don't know when Keane is going to combust, when something is going to be said that somebody may take offence to. You've been in these Ireland squads, you've been around football, you're no shrink of it, you've had rows with people. Like, do these rows, is there constant rows during international camps where people are having a pop at each other?
I wouldn't say during international breaks, in my experience, it was very common. Day to day, the monotony of you will find as well when results aren't going particularly well, that's when kind of things temper start to go a little bit. But it's not common having rows and coming together with staff. That isn't common.
When Tardelli was there, and Tardelli was, listen, he always had something to say for himself, and he often made a off-the-cuff quip about a player. Was there never an issue where people would be fronting up?
Look at dressing rooms, half-time, losing 1-0, and you're getting like, mainly staff will be breaking things up with players, as players are, or in training when there's a late tackle and you get up and you react. Like I had a little bit with Seamus Coleman when he first came into the squad. Whatever it was, I can't even remember what the instance was. But
was he right
no
or were you
big
right?
issue. I was probably right. But there's no big issue as long as it's left there and then. But what I'm getting at is It's not common with staff. It really isn't. And that's the point I'm making about Roy Keane. He is in a very responsible role who should be looking after those players. He should be treating them like his kids. That I need to protect this group. I am in this for one reason, to get us to Euro 2020, to try and get us to the World Cup in 2018. That's why I'm in it. So how am I going to do that? Really, there was a great piece in the end of this week as well. He could have players running through brick walls for him because he is on that pedestal. I've already mentioned he's an iconic player. If I was playing centre midfield and I was in a squad and he was involved, I would be itching for every little bit of advice. And if he gave me that little bit of encouragement or that kind of nod of approval, you would just go like, I'm having this.
And that's where the excitement was when Roy Keane was appointed, that here's somebody who's sat in the dressing room alongside some of the greatest footballers of their generation, not just being one himself, but was able to see what made Paul Scholes tick, what made David Beckham tick, two very different personalities, but who got the very best out of their career, who worked under Ferguson, worked under Clough. And if he could bring all that together and impart little bits of wisdom here and there that bring players to another level, and also get us back to the position we had when you were starting, but certainly when Kevin was playing, that actually players played their best football at international level. They were so excited to get into camp and getting to work with Roy Keane and hearing stories, whereas I've never heard that from a player. You get the odd snippet, even yesterday, of, he's always been great for me. You never hear a story of a player going, well, actually, he touched on this game that United played where he did this, where, like, Harry Arter's a prime example. Okay, Roy Keane's a far more talented footballer than Harry Arter will ever be. But similarly abrasive, not afraid to get stuck in, riles up the opposition, teaching them how to deal with that.
There has to be things that Roy Keane can say to Harry Arter, Glenn Whelan, Jeff Hendrick, whoever it is, Horan Brown coming in now. Imagine Alan Brown in that squad now, looking at Roy Keane every day in this training camp.
But Conor Horan's spoken of growing up worshipping Roy Keane. So give him something. Anything
he says. It's like when the famous ex-player walks into that dressing room as the manager. We're going to speak to Shay, giving him a little bit. So Frank Lampard walks into that dressing room. He's already got a huge amount of respect. Roy Keane has that in abundance. So anything he says to those players, it's going to go a long, long way.
But the immediate impression of Frank Lampard is he goes into that Derby dressing room and gives the impression of, I want to bring you to the level I got to. Let me try that. Let me bring you the wisdom that I learned under Jose Mourinho. Let me give you all that, and maybe you can go and have a similar career. That's not Roy. Everything we hear from around the squad, everything these rows suggest is he's more likely to have a bit of a smart-ass pop at your crap career and how you couldn't achieve what he achieved. You obviously didn't work as hard. You're not as fit as he was, rather than somehow boosting these players. And
he's had a couple of little bits and bobs. Graham Burke, he's been fantastic with me. Ireland players back Roy Keane after Arthur Walter's argument. Ireland players Conor Horan and Graham Burke have both backed Roy Keane following the latest controversy involving the assistant boss. In a recent interview with the Irish Daily Mirror, manager Martin O'Neill revealed that Keane was involved in the altercation with both Harry Arter and John Walters. Doesn't really surprise me that they're not going to come out and go against their assistant manager in the build-up to the game. Both of those players want to be in the team tomorrow night.
Should Harry Arter show a bit more backbone? Should you just put it to one side? He's only played 13 caps.
We don't know, Nathan. We don't know exactly what's been said. And if it has been that cutting, if it has been that close to the bone, and again, we're guessing, does he need it? Does he want it enough? Look, in my opinion, Harry Arter hasn't shone in a green jersey. I've said this to you before. He was like a fish out of water coming from the way Bournemouth play to the way we play. So when he moved to Cardiff, I instantly said, happy days. Because the way Warnock plays, in your face, aggressive, on the front foot. And I've seen two of his games, and the traits that he was showing for Cardiff, we're in dire need of them. Playing well, up to speed, fit, affecting the game. Whereas he didn't affect games for me when he was playing for Ireland before, because he was lost. He wasn't getting the direction. Like I've already mentioned, at Bournemouth, very, very different. He would come into our environment, and he certainly didn't shine. But he's a player that's capable of playing in our midfield and playing to a high, high level, I think.
Yeah, I do just wonder, though, if you have one row, whether that should be enough to step away, or whether you think long term and think, I just get through this, I ignore Roy, we just stay away from each other as much as possible. Maybe that isn't possible. Maybe it's such a close camp that actually if there's a little bit of bad blood, and obviously Roy and John Walters have had previous. Maybe that bad blood has been stirring away and Roy was just waiting for his moment. But either way, it's blown up. Hopefully John Walters will talk after the game tomorrow night, because he's certainly going to be asked about it.
Well, listen, we've got Shay Gibbon on the line. Derby Counties, Shay Gibbon. Shay, thanks for joining us.
Hi lads, you alright?
Very well, very well. Listen, tell us about the role at Derby County. I know you're goalkeeping coach, but you're not just a goalkeeping coach. You're involved in all sorts of things under the new era of Frank Lampard at Derby County, and you've started well.
I'm enjoying it. I mean, obviously, primary job is, as you say, Keith, for the goalkeepers, but then also I'm working with the outfield players with regards to set plays and taking the meetings for that, and just different things, just trying to, I suppose, learn the new job really as anyone else. And obviously Jody Morris is there as well, and Chris Jones, both from Chelsea. Of course, they've been coaching for a number of years. Of course, I know Frank's first job, of course, and we're ticking along okay. I think we're 2 points off top, so after 6 games we would have took that. We're changing the way we want to play from last year, the style of play and how we want to play, and that takes time. We brought some new players in, of course, as well, so we're trying to embed them into the squad and stuff as well. So, but no, we're going well.
I've really enjoyed watching even the transformation, Shay, in the first, I think it's only 6 games in, but first game of the season, you can see what you're trying to do, not quite getting there, get a couple of results, but then the last few games, sticking to it. The thing that's really, really impressed me has been the way Frank Lampard has spoken in the media, the honesty, the transparency, real, he's been very humble, in my opinion, the way he's spoken. What's he been like to work with?
Well, I think very passionate about the whole thing as well. You know, we're in nearly 7 days a week, and that's no exaggeration. And he's so dedicated to getting it right and getting the best out of the players. And you can see sometimes in the interview, he's very, very honest at times. And maybe in a few years' time, he might not be as honest as a manager, because some things he's just a little bit wears his heart on his sleeve, because he's so much into it, and you can see by his interviews after, he's absolutely buzzing that we've won the game or whatever, and you think what he's done in his career, of course, and for the players at Derby now to be learning off him and the standards he set in training and stuff, and the way I think the big thing as well, we want to play football, but at the same time we work really, really hard to try and win it back when we don't have it as well, and that comes from obviously every day in the training ground and working hard with that.
Yeah, obviously during his time with Chelsea, well, it was a bit of a basket case in some ways, in that they were changing manager every second season, but it meant that he had an opportunity to work with so many different types of managers, from Mourinho to Ancelotti, Benitez, Phil Scolari. When you first spoke, had he a very set way that he wanted to play the game, that he had a manager he looked up to that he wanted to replicate, or was it a little bit of a mix and match?
Yeah, I didn't really ask him too many questions on that front, but you would imagine, as you mentioned, Nathan, all them managers, I'm sure Frank has took a little bit from all of them, but he's got his own style. He doesn't want to be anybody else. He wants to be himself, and as I say, we do work hard at trying to play from the back, and it's not people watch this, of course, and not giving anything away here, opposition and stuff, but at times we won't be able to do that. We have to have plan B, which we're working on as well, and then of course, as I said already, when we don't have the ball, it's everyone's working really, really hard to get it back, and not just sort of retreating back to the edge of your box or whatever and hoping to get it back. We've actually got different things set and planned to try and win the ball back, as quick as we can.
Shay, we've got Wales tomorrow night, as we well know. The build-up has been far from ideal. Myself and Nathan have been chatting a little bit about it here. Probably the biggest disappointing factor, I would suggest, would be Declan Rice and that affair. What was your take on the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, Keith, you would love Declan just to play, and he's played 3 games, I think, and just to continue playing that. But obviously, there's been a spanner thrown in the works, be that from Gareth Southgate or for maybe the player's age. I don't really know the inside, obviously, story, but it's disappointing from an Irish point of view, of course, that he's not, fully committed for whatever reason. I'm not saying he won't be in the future, but I suppose Martin's dealt with it well in a sense. He's sort of give himself time, give the player time to come up with the right. I hope that he plays for Ireland again, because I think he's a big talent, and that's probably why England are sniffing around him as well. But he's played in all the underage teams for Ireland, and of course he's played for the senior team, and maybe that rule needs to be looked at in the future, Keith. I think once you pull on the jersey for especially the senior team, then I agree, Shay. Be it a friendly or a qualifier, it shouldn't matter at all. I think once you've crossed the white line and in a senior game, then I think you should be. That's who you play for then.
Shay, you've been in the squad obviously under this management team. Roy, look, he's never too shy away from having the odd confrontation too, but Harry Arter seems one that's taken exception to that. Johnny Walters, no big deal on his front, I don't think. What is Roy's role in this Irish setup?
Well, I think he's assistant manager. I mean, it says exactly what it says on the tin, and I suppose I don't have an insight on what's happened this week. I know there's been a few comments together, whatever. I don't know if it's arguments or anything else. I don't really know, Keith. I'll be honest. I was texting you earlier. I don't really know the inside story to anything up to this, But I mean, Roy's Roy. Roy can be.
Has he mellowed, Shay, from when you played with him to now as the assistant manager in a responsible role within the federation? Is there a mellowness to him?
But at the same time, when you're not happy with something, you're going to raise your voice and you're going to be not so mellow. And that's, obviously I'm in a coaching role myself now, and sometimes you do get angry with players and you maybe do shout at them, but 2 minutes later it's forgotten about. You're trying to get the best out of the players. You're trying to improve the players as a coach or assistant manager or whatever your role is. And sometimes maybe in the modern football, sometimes they can't take that criticism. I mean, when me and you played together, Keith, we'd be shouting at each other, do you know what I mean? But we walk off the pitch and, yeah, you're right there or you're wrong there. But it wasn't taken any further than that. I was expected to shout at you and you were expected to it was just taken.
But there has been a change though, Shay, hasn't it? This isn't just do it Roy Keane. There has been a change. So I'm sure you would have seen it in the latter part of your playing career, and then now going on to that side. What players can take now is very, very different. And we're not sat here like 56-year-old old pros, recently retired, and it did change towards the end of our career.
Yeah, I don't know if it's for the good either. I mean, sometimes, good rollicking, even look at Alex Ferguson. I mean, the hairdryer treatment is famous for, coming at half-time and rollicking people, and then they get a response second half and stuff. And I think that there might be a balance, Keith. Maybe it was too far that way, but maybe it's gone too far the other way now that you can't speak to players because they go off in the huff or they're in a mood with you because, you've shouted at them in front of the rest of the lads or things like that. But I just go back to what I said, as a coach, then you sometimes you make demands out of people to try and get the best out of them. And that's not you want to be following. That's just, you're trying to make them better and make them better on the pitch and make the team better.
Do you get the freedom, though, as a coach to do that at your choosing, or do you have to go through the manager and have a talk about it in advance that you're not happy with something someone's doing, that you're going to have a word, that it may get a little bit heated? Do you almost have to run that past the manager, or do coaches get free rein with these things?
I don't think so. We don't go around shouting and bawling at people, but obviously these things I think come to the sort of heat of the moment type things at times, and you don't maybe overly think through what you're going to say, or the player in the opposite way doesn't maybe overthink through it either. But in my career, in my opinion, once you've had a blowout or whatever it might be, then it's forgotten about, because both the player or the coach, we all want the same thing. We want what's best for the team. So sometimes clear the air and you move on. That's the simple thing. It's black and white for me. And if people take it, to heart or take it serious, and they, want to, not play and stuff, it's just too far. I think, they're trying to get the best out of the player and maybe sometimes try and get a reaction, a positive one.
Shay, looking towards the game tomorrow, you've got a few players involved from Derby County, obviously Richard Keogh from our side, but then there's a couple in particular I want to ask you about for Wales. Young Tom Lawrence, I've noticed a big change in the way he's playing this year, and you've alluded to the way the team is playing. I think it's getting the best out of him, and also Harry Wilson, who you've got on loan.
Yeah, two very good players. They've had a very good start to the season, Keith. As you know, I think Tom Lawrence is a bit of danger. Definitely from set plays and stuff as well. He's got a fantastic strike of the ball. He makes the ball move, so imagine whoever playing Darren Randolph, whatever, it'll have to be, from a goalkeeping point of view, they can make the balls wobble a lot these days, and Tom actually practices it in training, so Darren's listening and give him a bit of a heads up. Like, he does like to get a lot of movement on the ball when he does, and if you say Harry Wilson as well, he's quite small little guy, but he's very quick and nimble, and he moves the ball quickly, and he's very difficult to sort of tie down because he's so quick off the mark and stuff. And I mentioned Keys as well. Richard Keogh's had a very good start for us this season, and we lost Curtis Davis to injury, and Keys' captain's armband on. These last few performances have been fantastic, so he's doing very well. But they're a tough game tomorrow. Of course, it was never an easy game with Wales, of course, and Ryan Giggs will be his first competitive game as well, so it'll be a big game for Wales as well. So it won't be an easy fixture. Come
on, Shay, 134 caps. You've had some dodgy build-ups, and imagine down through the years, not far from ideal. Give us something to be positive about tomorrow. What do you think? Well, I think obviously we'll probably all sat back and watch the World Cup and being at a major finals and missing out on that again. I think that the disappointment from that will probably drive the lads on as much as anything. I know it's not really sure how this tournament works, but it's obviously seeded for the next sort of Euros and stuff, and I just think the lads will be watching the summer tournament there at the World Cup and thinking, no, we should be there. Can we get to the next one? That's the desire and the hunger. And
it's all about results. All about Martin and Roy and people at Ireland, but it'll all be about results. If we can get a result tomorrow night, then the little rouse arguments this week will be all put to bed. And it's well, playing for Ireland here. It's a massive thing for players and for managers, and we all want the same thing. We all want to win the game. So please God, we can get the result tomorrow.
Shay, one thing I wanted to ask you just on your coaching, and you mentioned Harry Wilson, who might play tomorrow night, who's been with Liverpool, who's a very young player. When you get a player like that to Derby who's looking to get experience, who's come through a very good youth academy, played very successfully at underage level, and probably still has hopes maybe of making it at the very, very top. What are you trying to do to help his career as a coaching staff? Are you almost in a way trying to make him a little bit rougher around the edges, getting him used to big boy football and very different from what he was doing at the academy, and the attitude that he has, and trying to get him used to 40, 44 games, 46 games a season?
Yeah, that's pretty much, Nathan. I think it's hardening him up to, there's loads of kids in England and under 23s and stuff, and playing in front of not very big crowds and nothing really at stake and stuff. And they're at big clubs like Liverpool and Man City and Man United and stuff, and they've got the best of everything. And I think it's about good, right? Albeit Derby's got very good facilities. I'm saying, they go out to the big world, and whereas, points are so important to us at Derby County, every single result is massive, means so much to so many people, of course, at the football club. And that's a big difference from under 23 football to competitive. We're trying to get out of the championship this year. It's a massive season for all of us, and he's part of that. So I think it's obviously hardening up for him personally. It'll be improving as a player, and he wants to play for Wales, of course, as well. We have this, most clubs do, sing a song and stuff, and what's his ambition? He wants to play in the World Cup for Wales, so he's very ambitious that he wants to, be the best player he can be in his position, and of course for his country as well. And I just hope he doesn't play too well tomorrow night, I suppose.
Shay, listen, thanks for taking the time. We appreciate it. I'll see you soon.
No worries,
Paul.
lads.
Cheers, Shay.
So Shay wasn't too familiar with the format of the UEFA Nations League. I'm getting there. Do you want to give us a little brief?
Well, if you want to take a nap for 20 minutes now, Keith, I'll just
Bring
run
it down,
through this.
condense it.
I think at first people were extremely confused and felt that these were basically glorified friendlies but had no great importance. Actually, it's pretty important, and it's a big opportunity for a country like Ireland to have a long-lasting improvement in their coefficients, in their seedings, and giving themselves an easier chance of qualifying. So I'll try and make it fairly simple. There's lots of other little bits I'm sure that people will say can happen. The benefits of winning this group that we're in with Wales and Denmark could have pretty long-lasting effects. Likewise, you finish bottom, you're probably on the back foot for qualifying for Euro 2020. So we win the group. You're guaranteed a top 2 seeding for the Euro 2020 qualifiers. That draw takes place Dublin, December. 10 groups, 2 qualify from each group. We're one of the top 2 seeds if we win this.
I'll be there.
Also, you win the group, you get a backup. So say we're one of the top 2 seeds and somehow we don't finish in the top 2, we finish 4th. We have a calamity and we get beaten by Cyprus. You still have a backup of a 4-team playoff, 4 teams, similar level, Division 2, which we're in, could be Ukraine, teams like that. Semi-finals, final. That takes place 3 months before Euro 2020, March 2020, and one of those teams will go through. So you've got 2 chances, and they're improved straight away by winning. Also, which I think has a more longer lasting effect, is you're also promoted to the first division, which is where England, Germany, France, Spain. So you get these glamour ties for the next Nations League in a couple of years, and you're also guaranteed a better seeding for the World Cup qualifiers. So that's already looking at something that's going to impact you in 3 years' time.
Down the line.
The downside is you get relegated, you finish bottom of your group, you drop down to Division 3, you're probably going to be 3rd seeds for the Euro 2020 draw. More than likely, you're not going to have a chance in these playoffs, these backup playoffs. So it's far more difficult to qualify for Euro 2020. And you get knocked down to Division 3, so already you're going into far lesser teams for the next campaign. Makes it more difficult for your seeding for the World Cup qualifiers in all likelihood. Now, some people would say maybe being in Division 3 is a good thing, again, because there'll be one place available through that. Quality of opposition isn't as good. I just think everything suggests winning your group here, getting promotion, and try, even if you're going to have some tough days against Spain, France, Germany, the knock-on is still, it's going to be easy.
Bigger sides.
Well, actually, you're going to have, this is the thing, that if we were to get relegated to Division 3, you're probably going to be playing
struggle against those
games
sides,
against the likes of Hungary in front of 20,000 people at the Aviva. You're playing Spain, you're going to learn a huge amount. And because of the new system, there's always a backup if you're in amongst the top teams. The further down you go, you have to be pretty much perfect. All right, the teams aren't as good you're up against, but I still think you have to be pretty much perfect. There's lots of room for error the higher up you are in this. So it is important. the whole Denmark story is very interesting because Denmark are obviously having a internal crisis. They may play a lot of futsal and Division 4 and Division 5 players against Wales.
Makes our camp look like Disneyland at the moment.
Well, it does, but it also means that if Wales were to beat Ireland tomorrow, they will then go and beat Denmark, you would assume, on Sunday. Suddenly, it's almost impossible for Ireland.
To catch them.
If we finish second in the group, which is a definite possibility, things more or less stay the same.
People by nature, and I'd probably be a little bit swaying towards this, don't particularly like change. A little bit dubious.
No, this is a big opportunity for us. This is a very big opportunity, and I'm interested in your thoughts on what sort of team he would play. In that, there was a sense probably when the draw was made there'd be room for experimentation. Probably with all the pressure they're under, with all the injuries, he's going to have to go with his strongest possible side tomorrow night.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. I think right at the start when this new format was coming up, you're right. It was a little bit of a. I would say it is a bit of a friend. Oh, we can still do this. We can still, like the Turkey game, like the USA game I had at the end of last season. We absolutely can't do that. And as well as the players that we're missing, we're already very, very light in a lot of areas. I genuinely think this is a good opportunity for Wales playing us at the moment. Mentioned to Shay about, when you've been in that type of situation before, you're craving crumbs of comfort and positivity. And yes, the squad will be galvanised. Yes, we'll be difficult to break down and we'll show that spirit, but we are lacking some serious talent from the squad at the moment.
Yeah, I would have concerns looking ahead for Martin O'Neill with these games. It almost goes back to when we were talking about a home Nations League, as they used to call it, where England will be involved. And England never wanted to be because there was nothing to gain, because if they lose a friendly or a home league game to Wales and Scotland, it's crisis. And I sort of feel that because all the goodwill has gone out of this Irish side over the last year, that unfortunately, if we were to take a bit of a beating tomorrow night, potentially lose at home to Wales, Denmark, this is worst case scenario, that actually the pressure with the interest levels that are there is going to be monumental on O'Neill and Keane, far greater than maybe they would have expected from not having positive results in these games.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. You mentioned Denmark. We'll come back onto the team in a little bit for tomorrow night and try and anticipate. I think defensively we'll probably be in agreement. But let's have a little listen. Joe was chatting to a Danish journalist last night, trying to paint the picture of what exactly is going on with the Danish FA and the Danish players.
And this group of players, the futsal players, have been called up to the squad?
Some of them, yeah. Some of them are futsal players. Some are from the normal football leagues, but from the 3rd, 4th and 5th division. Okay. You won't know the names. I know one of the names, that is Daniel Holm, who played in the Brøndby talent squad some years ago. The other players, don't know them.
Okay. I mean, it's going to be pretty interesting if they go up against Wales on Sunday.
Isn't it? Yeah, they'll lose hardly.
Yeah.
Well, this is not a team. It's worse than San Marino. They're not able to play a national match on a decent level.
Worse than San Marino. Look,
so we might struggle to a 2-1 win against them.
Come on. Look, it's far from ideal from their point of view. I know they've got the warm-up game, the friendly game before the big game against Wales on Sunday. But look, there's a lot made of players and bonuses, rights, commercial rights, all this. But from my understanding, it's very much they were willing to put this to one side until after these two games and commence negotiations after. It's been the FA that have said no, they want to get it sorted, and it comes down to the commercial rights.
It'll be very interesting to see what happens over the next 3 or 4 days. All right, they've got a friendly tonight, but it brings the entire competition into disrepute if they go out with a team of non-league players against Wales, because as we say, it does have huge knock-on effects for Ireland.
Didn't their women's team do something a few years ago?
The exact same thing over very similar issues. So you would have to think if the players want to play that they will somehow find a way. But it's hilarious in some ways. Can you imagine if something like that happened here?
Oh my God.
Live line for weeks on end about what a joke and what a shambles we are. But it does have a very real effect potentially for Ireland. So I don't see how they can just allow Wales to go and play and win that game 8-0.
It's a
there has to be some sort of fairness.
Our starting lineup. We're just trying to get Danny Gabbidon on the line, so I want to crack on with our starting lineup. I think defensively, probably in agreement. Darren Randolph, if he does go to back four, Seamus, Duffy, Clark, maybe Long. I would suggest Clark, but I wouldn't rule out Kevin Long.
Well, Kieran Clark started the season for Newcastle, where Kevin Long has only played bits and pieces.
The Europa League he's played, hasn't he? Because they've had a bit of a split schedule with those games. Obviously, that's come to an end now. And Stephen Ward left back. I would say Kieran Clark will be better suited because I think he's more mobile, and I think against Gareth Bale, he's going to need to be very, very mobile.
We have experimented with 3 at the back recently. Obviously, that was Declan Rice was in and around the squad.
USA game,
and there was obvious big benefits to that, and that it seems we're quite lopsided. And defensively, we have quite a bit of strength and Premier League experience. You haven't mentioned Matt Doherty there. Is there a case for playing 3 at the back, playing either Coleman or Doherty in a sort of Kyle Walker right side of a 3-man defence?
I mentioned this to you, didn't I? After I think it was the USA game. I would have liked to have seen that just tried out in a game like that. I felt Seamus as the right-sided centre-half of a 3, Matt Doherty as a wing-back. I mentioned this to Kev Kilban last week, and he quite liked the other way around.
That's what I would have thought.
Would you? Well, I don't see Matt Doherty in that way, you see. That's why I asked
Is Coleman
Kev,
not one of the best attacking
yes,
wing-backs?
But something needs to give, and I think Matt Doherty going forward has been very, very good. I think Matt going into this season, one of my worries about him would have been going forward, no problem at all in the Premier League defensively, and even himself, he's been on here and he said he still has to work on things, his positional sense. And last year Wolves didn't actually have to defend as nowhere near as much as they're going to have to defend this year, so it's interesting. You think right side of a 3 for him as well?
Well, I just think again you want to get as many players who are playing confident football at the moment, and Matt Doherty's confidence has probably never been higher, because he went through the summer wondering would they go and spend 30 million quid on some Portuguese wing back and he'd be out. In fact, he's kept his place. He's got clattered a couple of times, but he's playing well. Drawn against Man City, going to West Ham and winning. You're right. So look, I think there's an argument to be made. I don't think he'll play him, and I think he'll probably keep a back 4. I'm going to be interested to see what Danny Gabbidon thinks, because when you look at Wales under Coleman, it's been predominantly a 3 at the back. Giggs, I don't think will play that, and I think with what he has available, I think it will be a back 4. I think some of their strength. Obviously, we know about Gareth Bale, but I think they're going to be dangerous in wider areas, especially on the left-hand side. Davies, who we know from Spurs, playing very, very well, and Tom Lawrence, who Shay knows well from Derby County. I think he's playing very, very well, and I think if you go with a 3, sometimes you're a little bit vulnerable in wide areas. And the potential of Bale drifting out to the left-hand side as well?
Yeah, well, that's going to be interesting to see what way he's used. So we kind of got used to him playing that free role to a degree, in and around Vokes, Hal Robson-Kanu, your mate.
Retired, unfortunately.
Right.
That's obviously not a terrible defence. It's a group of players who are playing in the Premier League, who've started the season, who are playing first-team football. It's from there on that the problems really start. Yeah, we've got Danny on the phone. Danny Gabbidon, ex-Welsh international, 49 caps. Danny, thanks for taking the time out to have a chat with us.
Afternoon, chaps. How you doing?
Yeah, really good, really good. Look, Ryan Giggs is someone you've played with. Huge reputation, obviously, as a player. It was a little bit of, there was Craig Bellamy mentioned when it came to replacing Chris Coleman. How would you sum up the choice and the popularity of the decision with Ryan Giggs getting that?
Well, I think it probably split opinion, to be honest with you, Keith. I think it was a bit 50-50 with the fans. A lot of the fans were still holding a lot of stuff against him from when he was a player. Obviously, his commitments at times, turning up for friendly games as a player, didn't have a great record there. So a lot of the Welsh fans were kind of holding that still against him when he got the job. So it was very much kind of 50-50. And I think unless he can kind of start getting instant kind of results, it might be difficult for him in those early stages. So the Welsh kind of public quite torn at the minute. Obviously, they played kind of 3 friendlies, I think it is, up until now, but kind of still none the wiser really with kind of formation wise and kind of style of play. He's blooded a lot of kind of young players, giving them opportunities. So it remains to be seen really going into these couple of games. It's a little bit going into the unknown, I'd say. Yeah, it's difficult to kind of gauge with the friendly games end of the season. Obviously some players not available. Bale wasn't available for the last game against Mexico, but when you look at Chris Coleman, the success that he had, it was very much with a back 3, and then at the opposite end getting the best out of Gareth Bale. Do we have any idea, with Giggs being a former winger, will he want to play a back 3, or will he revert to
a back four, do you think? And how does Gareth Bale fit into this system to maximise him?
Well, I think that the noises that he's kind of been saying, the new manager coming in, I think he wants to get the Wales side playing a lot more positive, a bit more kind of on the front foot. As mentioned, in the 3 kind of friendlies that he's played with a back four, he's played with a back 3. So kind of going into the game tomorrow, it's very difficult to kind of gauge what he's going to go with. But you think maybe if he's opting to be a bit more positive and on the attacking front, then you think maybe he'd go with a back 4. I think with the way kind of Ben Davies plays in that role for Tottenham, he doesn't really play that way for Wales. Obviously, he plays on the left side of a 3 normally and under Chris Coleman. But you think to get the best out of him, the way he plays kind of at Tottenham, you think maybe going to a back 4 would suit him. With regards to Gareth Bale, I think it'd be quite similar to how Chris Coleman used him. I think he will play kind of in a free role, off the front, off someone, or possibly as that kind of lone striker with license to kind of roam about. In the friendly games, he kind of played a bit more as an inside forward, but was kind of given that license to go wherever he pleased, really. So it's going to be interesting because, as you said, a lot of youngsters have kind of been given the opportunities in recent games. You've got the likes of David Brooks, who's made the step up to the Premier League, starting for Bournemouth in the first few games. So he's pushing for a start. Tom Lawrence, as you mentioned, has had a good start to life with Derby and is kind of cementing his place in the Wales team with some good recent performances. So you kind of think maybe Bale might be the lone man, and those 2 players maybe playing as kind of inside forwards off him.
When you run through those players there, it's clear that they're not a one-man team. But if Wales are to achieve anything, it will be through Gareth Bale. And we've seen that through Chris Coleman's side, that big game after big game during qualification for the last European Championship, he turned up with goals, and he was a huge loss for the couple of games he missed during qualification for the World Cup. Coleman and Bale seemed to grow together at Wales. Coleman managed them very well. It was just before he moved to Real Madrid. He wasn't quite the superstar he is now. Now, Ryan Giggs obviously was a superstar himself, but that relationship and Bale and Giggs getting an understanding, is that the key for Wales over the next couple of years, that Giggs somehow figures out how to manage him?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's a very easy player to manage, Gareth Bale. He's got a great personality, loves playing for his country, will do whatever job is asked of him. I think, as you mentioned there, Chris Coleman was very good at getting the best out of him. At the early part of his national career, obviously he was playing as a fullback, as a wing back. Then he kind of got moved on to that right-hand side, and Chris Coleman was key in getting big performances out of him by just freeing him up and playing him a bit more central and giving him that license to roam. And that is where Gareth kind of enjoys playing. He played there a lot on that right-hand side for Tottenham. That kind of got him his move to Real Madrid. But having moved to Real Madrid, I think he's evolved a lot as a player, and he enjoys playing more in those kind of central areas. So I don't see too much kind of changing with him. But he, of course, he is a big player. Wales are not the same if he's not playing. It takes a lot away from their kind of a attacking force, and that was kind of shown really in the qualifiers for the World Cup, where he missed a few games through injury, was struggling a bit with his form, and Wales really struggled as a whole. So you can look at Gareth Bale and say, yes, he is a key player, but also the other side, the defensive kind of solidity which Wales have built their success on the last couple of years, that has to remain the same as well. So if Ryan Giggs wants to go a bit more expansive and try and attack a bit more, he does have to be wary as well of getting that balance right and making sure that Wales are not too vulnerable defensively as well. So it's going to be an interesting one to see how Wales go about this one, because Republic of Ireland are a team who are very difficult to beat, and a team that Wales kind of struggle playing against. A team that sits back and are organised and hit on the counter-attack and kind of limit the space for the attacking players. So it's going to be interesting how Wales go about it and how they differ in style of play compared to, obviously, that loss that they suffered against the Republic at the back of the World Cup qualifiers.
Yeah, Danny, we've obviously had recent history being in each other's group in the last campaign. It was a tough group with Austria and Serbia as well. Seamus Coleman, the Neil Taylor incident, obviously that game, James McLean getting that goal to nick us into the playoffs. we've had a very tricky build-up to this game. Lots of pull-outs, the whole Declan Rice issue. How do you see it from your perspective? Is it an opportunity to start this campaign well?
I think it's got to be. Obviously, this new format with the Nations League, it gives the kind of the lesser nations another avenue to qualifying for Euro 2020, and so it's really important to kind of get off to a good start. As you mentioned, Keith, obviously you guys have had a few issues, the Harry Arter issue, the Declan Rice issue as well. James McLean, who was a thorn in Wales side in that game back at the Cardiff City Stadium in the qualifiers, scoring the goal and injuring Joe Allen as well in the process. I mean, it looks like you've probably got more issues than Wales have at the minute. You look at the Wales squad, and a lot of players are playing well. There's not too many issues there. As we mentioned, Gareth Bale has started the season on fire, performing very well, looks fit. Aaron Ramsey as well, who's another key player. He's been playing well for Arsenal. So you could look at this game and say, yes, a good opportunity, a good time maybe to play the Republic of Ireland. But I think it's more about what kind of Wales do, being the home team, a new manager, a new start. Hopefully a lot more kind of positivity with the performances. I think it's a bit more about what Wales do than what's happening with the Republic of Ireland. So it's going to be a good game, because obviously the last kind of big game was against the Republic of Ireland, and Wales really did struggle in that game, as they did in the reverse fixture that was at, over in Ireland as well. So it's going to be a good gauge to see where Wales are at as a team compared to those previous games against Ireland, and whether they kind of go a bit more on the front foot, for a bit more positive, and try and go out and actually win the game. I
certainly have you as favourites tomorrow, Danny. Are you at the game tomorrow, Danny?
I'm there, yeah. I'll be there.
Listen,
yeah.
Danny, thanks for taking the time. I'll hopefully see you there tomorrow, buddy.
Pleasure, chat.
Cheers, pal. Lovely fella, Danny Gabbidon. I've done a couple of games with him, and speaks well, obviously well in the loop with the Wales camp. I do have them as favourites.
Yeah, they have to be. With all that's going on with Ireland, with the amount of players that we're missing, with the absolute lack of goal scorers. Stephen Ward is our second top scorer in the squad, with 3 goals in his international career. We're relying on John Walters. We are thanking the gods that John Walters didn't walk away retire. After his...
Darryl Murphy should have been getting an SOS, by the way.
If John Walters wasn't
looking
fit,
sharp,
he would have to.
Yeah.
So Wales didn't perform the night Seamus Coleman got injured at the Aviva Stadium. They were very good for half an hour until Joe Allen got injured. If that's the Wales we see tomorrow night, you would expect they're going to win this game.
Yeah. We've got a few comments in. John M. Pryor, Declan Rice never went away, he simply asked for time. Steve McNamara, I wouldn't fancy a clip off Walters or Keane.
You would pay to watch that, though. Of all these scraps of Irish
some of the nonsense
figures,
that's on box
you would
office,
love to see.
I would pay for that, actually.
Oh, you would love to have been a proper fly in the wall if John Walters ripped off the top and squared up.
Depeche 101, Keane is there to put bums on seats and take heat off O'Neill. What other countries lets their assistants do press conferences? Well, I think it's been part and part of it. But listen, that's all we got time for. Thank you for taking the time, mate.
Cheers, Keith.
Appreciate that. Good
see you in
first day
Cardiff.
back. We will see each other tomorrow. You can watch this back on YouTube. Get the pod on Off the Ball Football Show stream. If you enjoyed it here, share it. Tell your friends. We will be back on a normal day of next Thursday at 12:30. Until then, take it easy.